What if I told you there was a socioeconomic engine so powerful it built entire cities, funded world-class universities, and provided free healthcare for literally centuries? You'd probably think I was talking about some sci-fi concept, but this was real. It was an institution that became the bedrock of a civilization, but somehow today it's been almost completely forgotten. This was a true marvel of sustainable social infrastructure, and it all started with one simple but absolutely profound idea.
So, think about this for a second. Imagine you make a donation to a cause you care about. But instead of it being a one-time gift that gets spent and is gone, what if it could be a permanent, self-sustaining source of good? An investment in society that could keep paying dividends, not just for your lifetime, but for 1,000 years or more. Sounds impossible, right? Well, this was the core idea behind one of history's most impactful financial tools.
And that tool is called a waqf. Now, the concept is just brilliantly simple. You donate an asset. It could be a piece of land, a building, even just money. And that original asset, the principal, is never, ever touched. It's preserved forever. It's only the income that asset generates, the rent, the profits, the harvest from the land, that's used to fund a specific charitable cause. It is, quite literally, the ultimate sustainable charity model.
So where did this incredibly powerful idea come from? I mean, how did it start? To really get a handle on its impact, we've got to go all the way back to the very beginning, right at the dawn of the Islamic civilization.
The practice of waqf actually began with the Prophet Muhammad himself. When he migrated to Medina, the very first mosque he helped establish, Quba, was set up as a waqf. And right after that came the famous Prophet's Mosque in Medina. The idea caught on like wildfire. His companions, people like Uthman ibn Affan, saw a real need. The community needed water, so he bought a well and endowed it for everyone to use for free.
And this is where the story gets absolutely incredible. That same well that Uthman endowed over 1,400 years ago, it's still operating today. Seriously, over the centuries it was developed, a farm grew up around it, and today the profits from that farm are still being used for charity in Medina, and of course to maintain the well itself. It's a living, breathing example of a truly perpetual investment that has spanned empires.
But look, these early examples were just the beginning. They were the seeds. This simple idea of a perpetual endowment didn't just stay small-scale. It completely exploded, becoming the financial engine that fueled the entire golden age of Islamic civilization.
Let's just take education, for example. Way back in the year 859, a woman named Fatima al-Firia took her inheritance and decided to establish a place of learning in Fez, Morocco. But she didn't just build it and walk away. She established the whole thing as a waqf, ensuring that its mission to educate would continue long, long after she was gone.
And that single institution she founded? It became the University of Al-Qarawiyyin, which UNESCO actually recognizes as the world's oldest continuously operating university. And that single waqf eventually grew to include a mosque and a hospital. But here's the kicker. Its structure, this idea of an endowment funding a place of learning forever, became the blueprint for some of the earliest universities in the West. We're talking about institutions like Oxford and Cambridge. They adopted a very similar model.
The impact wasn't just limited to education either. It also completely revolutionized public health care through these incredible institutions known as Bimaristans. Now, these weren't just simple clinics. They were groundbreaking medical centers, all funded by waqf.
Just look at the promise these waqf-funded hospitals offered. The services they provided were just astounding, even by today's standards. Care was free for everyone. It didn't matter what your wealth, race, or religion was. You could stay as long as you needed to recover, no time limit. And get this, when you were discharged, they'd give you new clothes and some money to help you get back on your feet. As if that wasn't enough, they were also the top medical schools of their day, training the next generation of doctors.
And the scale just kept growing. During the Ottoman era, the concept evolved again. It went from funding single institutions to building entire urban centers. They had this innovative concept they called a kuliye.
So a kuliye was basically a self-sustaining community hub. At the very center, you'd have a grand mosque. And surrounding it, you'd find all the essential public services: a college, a hospital, public kitchens for the poor, a guest house for travelers, the whole shebang. And you might be asking, how is it all paid for? Well, the waqf that established it would also include an income-generating asset like a market or a public bath built right into the complex itself. This shows us that waqf wasn't just charity, it was a sophisticated tool for urban planning and social development.
By the 14th century, this system was so widespread and so effective that the famous world traveler Ibn Battuta was completely stunned. When he visited Damascus, he wrote that the awqaf, that's the plural of waqf,
were literally everywhere, funding everything you could possibly imagine, from freeing prisoners to just paving the streets. He said their number was beyond computation.
So, if this system was so powerful, so widespread, and so beneficial, the big question is, where did it all go? Because the 19th and 20th centuries saw a near-total collapse of this once glorious institution. It's a shocking turn in the story.
The numbers here are just staggering. I mean, they speak for themselves. In the Ottoman Empire alone, there were over 26,000 officially recorded Avkaf. But by the middle of the 20th century, almost all of them had vanished. Only a few hundred remained, and many of those just existed on paper. It wasn't a slow decline. It was a great implosion.
So what on earth happened? Well, it wasn't one single thing. It was really a perfect storm of factors. From the outside, you had immense pressure. Widespread colonization led to the outright confiscation of these assets. The fall of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of nationalism redrew the entire map, and new governments imposed taxes and bureaucracies that just choked the system. But the rot also came from within. You started to see corruption and mismanagement creep in, alongside a kind of intellectual decline that failed to adapt this incredible institution for a rapidly changing world.
And that brings us to today. In the 21st century, there's been a renewed interest in reviving this ancient idea. It makes sense, right? But after decades of decline, trying to bring it back, well, it's not so simple.
The challenges to reviving Waqf today are pretty significant. As you can see here, probably the biggest hurdle is a fundamental lack of knowledge and awareness. An institution that was once an everyday part of life is now totally unfamiliar to a lot of people. On top of that, you're dealing with legal and management frameworks that are often totally outdated, and there's a real struggle to envision how this amazing historical model can be adapted to solve our complex modern problems.
And that really leaves us with a final, fascinating question. In a world that's grappling with huge challenges in education, healthcare, and sustainable development, could the revival of this 1,400-year-old idea of perpetual charity actually hold a key to building a better future? It's definitely something we're thinking about.